Hi guys. Well, you know who I am, but for those that are watching that don't, my name is Richard Parks. I'm a world record holding athlete, author, television presenter, and entrepreneur. And I'm here this morning with Bryn Mawr Foundation School to talk about my book, Beyond the Horizon, which the guys have read and have some really tough questions for me. Actually, I've briefly seen them and they've not gone easy on me. So I'm really looking forward to talking about myself, Wales, why I do it, and what I hope for the future. So thanks for having me, and looking forward to getting started.
What made you want to write a book?
Wow. Well, honestly, I didn't plan to write a book. Is the honest answer. Writing was kind of a type of therapy for me. Um, my journey started at the lowest point of my life when injury ended my professional rugby career. I played internationally. I won trophies with Pontypridd and Leeds, and rugby was all I knew at that point in my life. And when I was forced to retire, the bottom fell out of my world. I fell into depression. I wasn't ready to retire. I didn't have the tools to transition. Um, of course, I've got perspective now. We will all have our own tough times in our life, but at that point, it was the darkest time for me. And writing a diary was my kind of therapy, I guess. It was my way to just try and understand the emotions that I was feeling uh, and process them. And alongside that diary, I decided to start climbing. That was another form of therapy for me. I just needed to push myself physically, mentally. I wanted to do something different, something far removed from rugby. And that combination of learning how to climb and writing the diary kind of evolved through it was a 3 or 4 year journey into the book Beyond the Horizon. So I'm incredibly proud of my book, but I didn't start the process wanting to write it. From beginning to end, it was about 3 years. So as I kind of mentioned, the actual the diary started back in 2010, but it wasn't until after I finished the project that was the 737 challenge and created that first Guinness World Record that I was approached by a publisher and by an agent, and the idea of the opportunity to write the book came. So that would have been 2011, 2012. And then the book was published in 2015. So yeah, about 3 years from beginning to the end. But actually, it was probably about a 5 or 6 year journey.
How did you motivate yourself to keep on writing?
It was easy to motivate myself writing the diaries. As I mentioned, it was kind of a form of therapy for me. It helped me kind of process my emotions and my feelings and help me understand them. So almost every day throughout that 737 challenge, I was writing my diary in a tent on the side of a mountain, in Antarctica, in Nepal, in Alaska, and that became kind of a ritual for me, and I really enjoyed it. It also formed part of the blogs that I was sending back throughout that project. So that was that was easy. When I actually started working with my co-writer and started working with the publisher, things changed a little bit for the better, but it wasn't just my world. Obviously, I was working as a team then. Although it's my book, the whole process was an incredible, for me, an incredible team project. from my editor to my co-writer, myself, the kind of PR machine, and then it became quite collaborative at that point, and it was challenging for me to kind of let people into my story. At that point, it was a diary. It was very private, and I really wrestled with how much of myself to put into the book. But I'm really glad I made the decision just to open up. I mean, the first chapter of the book, I talk about the mental health challenges I had around my injury and that period of my life, and that was really tough for me to share that, to kind of put that out in the world. But I'm really glad I did, because it's a book about life. It's a book about climbing, but it won the best rugby book at the Cross British Sports Book of the Year Awards in the rugby category, just because of that first chapter. So I'm really glad I did that. What motivated me to keep going? I'm as stubborn as you like, and when I start a project, I like to see it through. I like to finish it, and when I realised that it became more than just me and my book, and there are other people involved, and I've genuinely felt that other people might enjoy reading it and benefit from it. That kind of philosophy of teamwork and that philosophy of being part of something bigger just kept me going when times got tough.
Did you have any habits that made writing easier, like listening to music?
No, I didn't actually. I work in different ways on different projects. So when I need to be creative, whether that be writing a script for a television program or designing a kind of keynote presentation, or in this particular context, writing the book, I really like silence. So I needed to kind of get away and clear my head. So it sounds sort of a cliche, but kind of locking myself in the room. It kind of gave my head that space to roam freely, and for me to be able to roam in my thoughts, and for my thoughts to be able to ebb and flow. If I'm just working on a task, like kind of a linear task, I really like listening to music. I'm a big drum and bass head. I also like kind of R&B music as well. So I'll sometimes that helps, but on this project, no. I just like to be in a quiet room on my own.
Has reading always been a passion of yours?
Yeah, it has, but I've fallen in love. I've fallen in love with books all over again in the last decade. So I used to love books when I was like a little fella, and I see it in my son now. He loves books, he loves reading, he loves stories, and he's only 3. Mum and Dad tell me that I was a little bit like that when I became a teenager. Kind of books didn't seem that cool to me, so I kind of fell out of the habit of reading, and really kind of fell out of the habit of enjoying reading. And then, through school and through university, books were kind of just a means to an end for me. It was about learning. It was about getting, knowledge and information. But at this point in my life, maybe 10 years ago, like I said, when I started, writing my diary, when I felt like I needed that escape in my life, books became a real tool for me, and the ability to kind of immerse myself in something, to be able to escape the moment that I'm in, the world that we're in, into a book, into a story, has become a really important kind of part of my well-being strategy. And I particularly like non-fiction works. I love autobiographies. I love biographies. I like the idea of of growing a little bit, of learning something, as well as having a lot of fun when throughout the course of a book. So I would say I've been on a journey with my relationship with books, but yeah, no, I've always got one in my bag, and I always take one when I'm away in the tent or when I'm camping.
When did you realise you enjoyed challenging yourself with the sorts of tasks you faced for 737 Challenge and the Antarctic speed record?
I guess it's always been in me, in my DNA. I think back to when I was in school. Ironically, the teachers that had the biggest impact on me were one of two teachers. Either the teachers that were incredibly supportive of me, or they were the teachers that were less than supportive and challenged me, maybe even told me that I couldn't do something. Because I've always been stubborn. I've always been strong-willed, and I guess that was channeled into rugby as a younger man and being a professional athlete, and that served me well in that chapter of my life. But in this chapter of my life, since I started climbing and since I kind of changed my life path and my career path, I've come to realize that it's about more than that. It's about growth, and it's about developing the tools to be my best self. So challenges for me aren't kind of just flippant. I think in life, whatever we do, every time we face adversity, we have a choice. We either roll our sleeves up and we find a way through the tough times, and when we're through the other side, we're stronger, we're better, we have more tools in our kind of toolbox, and that confidence transfers into all of our life, and every time we hit a challenge, we grow, we learn more about ourselves and the world, and all that growth kind of just goes into the toolbox that we carry through our life. And I never really realized this until the last kind of 10 years. And I mean, I love what I do. The thing that drives me is the positive societal footprint that each of my projects leaves, whether it's in education, whether it's in charity, or whether it's in science or research, but personally, I take a lot of growth from each project. It enables me to develop tools and also to practice the tools that I already have, that I'm able to transfer into my kind of day-to-day life, which makes me a more confident and a more happier person in my day-to-day life. So I'm a big believer in challenging ourselves. That could be the exams that you're facing now. It could be learning a new topic. When you move up, it could be anything. But every time that we do something that we've never done before, or any time that we face adversity and we have the courage to go through it, we grow, and that growth is what enables us to learn more about ourselves and learn more about the world, and ultimately make better life choices, and hopefully be happier.
Following that, do you think these challenges have changed your mindset?
Oh, that's absolutely, yeah. Like I mentioned, I've always been competitive. I've always kind of been stubborn. I've always been ambitious, but to what end? Whereas now I'm more self-aware, and I'm more aware of the situations that I'm that I'm in, and the opportunities for growth that they present me, and how it's changed, how the last 10 years and how kind of climbing mountains and the polar expeditions have changed your mindset is it's enabled me to see my weaknesses as my strengths. So I've even as a professional and international rugby player, I'd always suffered with kind of mild anxiety, scared of making a mistake, scared of dropping the ball, scared of letting my teammates down, and that kind of created this roller coaster for me, week to week, Saturday to Saturday, just scared. And after the operation to repair my shoulder, as you would have read in the book, I think I was just tired of being scared, and mountains seemed the scariest thing I could think of, and that was my way of channeling my energies into something positive. But I'd always seen this kind of anxiety or this kind of insecurity as a flaw, as a weakness, something that I'd never talk about, or something that I wouldn't share with my teammates. And that was hard. But through writing my diary, through the challenges that I faced on the expeditions, through the kind of collaboration that came together in the development of the team behind the projects, I realized that actually this wasn't a weakness, because this kind of insecurity drove my meticulous attention to detail. It's driven my preparation. It's not only made me successful, but it's actually kept me safe in some of the world's most challenging environments. And that kind of change of mindset to actually just really be a little bit more comfortable in my own skin and be a little bit comfortable with my imperfections has been a massive change in my mindset, and certainly helped me be a lot more happier in my day-to-day life.
What makes you decide to take on a challenge?
Oh, lots of different reasons. I'm really fortunate that I'm in a place now where people drop me an email or give me a call and say, what about this? Do you fancy doing this? And I've not had the opportunity to take anyone up on that at the moment. So all of the projects that I've done have kind of come from a very personal place. As I mentioned, the 737 challenge, that came from really quite a dark place, but it evolved into something wonderful and something that I'm very proud of. The last 4 or 5 years, I've been, well, 6 years now, because we've lost a year in COVID. I've been captivated by Antarctica, and that started from being invited to Captain Scott's Memorial Service at St Paul's Cathedral in London, and learning about the history that we in Wales have with Antarctica, and wanting to give young people an opportunity to be a part of that history through the work that I've done with Team Quest and Cardiff Met. So that was very personally driven for me. My son is my inspiration for my next project. Unfortunately, it's still embargoed, so I can't tell you too much about it, but I really enjoyed the last few years working with the university students throughout the project and Team Quest, and seeing the growth in them, and trying to develop that project to enable more young people to have that opportunity to be a part of something, to be a part of the project, and also trying to leave the world a little bit better for you guys and for your kids when you have them. That's what's certainly driving the development for my next project. But it's just Sorry, it's just about fun. You know, I think we never really know where the spark of inspiration comes from. Sometimes it can be reading a book. Sometimes it can be watching television. Sometimes it can be a conversation with our friends. Sometimes it can just be a sunset, or you know, the way that a tree sounds in the wind, and it can spark your thoughts and imagination. So every project comes from somewhere different, but for me, my current project I'm working on has come from the inspiration of my son, and Antarctica came from reading and learning of the history that we in Wales have with Antarctica.
What was the hardest challenge for you, mentally and physically?
Do you know what? Each project that I do feels like the hardest. I think there's a certain recency bias in my memory. It also feels like the best or the most enjoyable. It's strange that quite often the things that I find the hardest are the things that I find the most enjoyable. Antarctica was really tough. You know, the last 4 or 5 years have been really tough. I committed to the solo, unsupported, and unassisted world record attempt, and I was really proud to work with a number of partners on the project, from the team at Sony and Pencoed to the team at Cardiff Met as well, and it became about so much more than just a solo expedition and a solo record. When I saw the way that the students just embraced the challenges that we gave them, students across the university were given the brief to design and develop parts of my equipment. So from my sled that I pulled, to the food rations that I took, to even the orthotics in my insoles, in my ski boots, they designed part of my equipment, and it became about much more than me. And that was both incredibly inspirational, but it was also pretty scary, because if I failed, if it wasn't just me that I was letting down, it was a lot of people. Add to that, I knew that I was going to have to miss my son's first 2 Christmases, so it wasn't until he was kind of just turning 3 that we had a Christmas together this year, and that was really, really hard. I love my family and I love being at home, so it was really tough, you know. And to add to that, the environmental change in Antarctica just posed problems that I'd never encountered in that environment. So Antarctica is, you know, the world's largest desert. Over the last 10 years, I've seen it evolve from a very cold, dry climate to, actually, the last 2 years, it was incredibly wet. I mean, and I don't mean raining, but the moisture in the snow meant that the snow was much softer, which changed the skis I needed, the sled that I needed. The humidity in the air made the visibility really bad, so I had much more whiteout conditions than I'd experienced before, which meant I probably spent about 40% of the expedition in a white box, just not being able to see anything in front of me, anything on the floor, no contrast, no horizon. And it even changed the equipment I needed, because actually I needed equipment that was more water resistant, more waterproof than previous expeditions. And that was really scary to me, to see that change, that environmental change in the continent, and to face those challenges that, to a certain extent, a little bit unprepared. And it was tough. That certainly was one of the toughest projects. And you know, to move as quickly as I did, to carry as little food as I did, you know, I was right at the edge of my kind of physical capabilities. So from a project point of view, that stands out as one of the toughest ones. But speaking really honestly, I've been really surprised at how hard this last year has been on me personally. I am well equipped to perform on my own, to perform in hostile environments. But, the anxiety of kind of the worry of the risk to family members of the pandemic, and the loss of autonomy, and the kind of isolation, and even just the challenges of being in a flat with, admittedly, the people I love, but it's not normal for us to spend all day every day in a flat with a 3-year-old and my wife. That this year has been tough, really tough, and I feel just as proud getting through this last year as I have felt finishing the big expeditions. It really feels the same. It feels like we've got through something really, really tough. So in some ways, this last year has been equal to anything I've faced on an expedition.
How do you stay motivated?
A mixture of things, really. I'm of the opinion that motivation comes and goes. We will all have had that feeling on a Monday morning where the last thing you want to do is get out of bed and get into school, or get out of bed and get into work. We can't all be motivated, full of beans, full charge every day. To me, the word commitment is something that's much more powerful. And when I commit to something, and when I commit to the team involved in the projects, that becomes set in stone for me, and that's what pulls me through the tough times. Every day I challenge myself, and I battle the negative thoughts and the kind of negative self-talk in a tent. It could be minus 30 outside and I'm cozy. The last thing I want to do is get out my sleeping bag and start skiing. But that kind of commitment to my team, that commitment to my family, that commitment to the sponsors and the students involved, that's what gets me through. And ultimately, I want to leave a positive legacy, and a lot of the opportunities that I get come from completing the project, and being successful, and that's what drives me.
Do you think that the mind or the body gives up first?
Ooh, that's a good one. Maybe different people might have different opinions to this. For me, do you know what? That's a really, really tough one. There's no doubt in my mind that they are intrinsically linked, and they play an equal role in well, certainly my experience. When times have got tough, when expeditions have got hard, when the weather's crapped out, or I've running low on food, or whatever the challenge, they certainly play an equal part. But if I had to pick one, I would say that our minds are our most powerful tools. And I think for me, we start to feel, the body starts to creak first. But actually, I've learned that physically we are capable of so much more than we often think. And quite often our mind pulls our body through. So it's hard to say which one gives up, but I know which one is probably more important, and that's our mindset. Our minds are more powerful than we could ever imagine. For me, a lot of my projects have a performance element because I enjoy that. I enjoy pushing the boundaries physically. So my physical condition is critical for me, but I often see that as below the line. So if you think of a building, I often see my physical condition as the foundations for that building. The fitter and stronger I am, the deeper and stronger the foundations are. and then my mindset is what enables me to kind of build that building as high as I can. So they're both equally as important, and one without the other would just kind of be, well, just wouldn't work. But if I had to pick one, I would say that our mindsets are our most powerful tool.
Which challenge would you like to revisit and why?
Oh, oof. It might not be the obvious one, but a few years ago I entered a race called the Tour Divide, and it's not really a race. It's a self-supported off-road mountain bike race from Canada to Mexico. So 4,400 kilometers down the Rocky Mountains in kind of Central America. And I did it because actually I was in a pretty tough place in my life. I needed to get away. I had a mountain bike. I thought this sounded really cool. There's no prize money. There's no entrance fee. It's just a really cool group of people from all over the world, from world-class athletes all the way through to, you know, father and daughter riding it on a tandem bike, believe it or not. There's more climbing on the race than climbing Everest, as in the altitude gains up and down through the Rockies. And I just wanted to get away. So kind of back to the previous question, what inspires you, or what makes, you know, how do you find the challenges? This was an example of kind of a crazy time doing a crazy thing, but I just loved it. I loved seeing America in that way. My sister lives in America, so I thought I knew America until I cycled, you know, through this part of the country. And I did it in 25 days, and then I went back a couple of years ago and did it in 19 days. But I just loved it, and I would love the opportunity to do more big cycles. Not with a record. Just, I think cycling is a really awesome way to see a country. You can move fast enough to get places reasonably quickly, but equally you move slow enough to be able to really see a place. And when you're, you know, I was wild camping, so I would just sleep on the side of the road. I would sleep, you know, I would stop and ask farmers to sleep in their fields and things like that. And, you know, I got to talk to some really cool people. You know, I met a real cowboy, and my mates take the mick out of me because I love denim, right? I've got a bit of a fetish for denim, and I met a real cowboy who wore real denim, and you know, I met had some crazy experiences. You know, came face to face with a grizzly bear. Probably one of the scariest experiences of my life. I just met did some really cool things, and I would love to do that through Wales. So when I filmed Extreme Wales, we created a kind of a new off-road path from North to South Wales, but obviously the camera crew was with me, and I met some amazing people on that trip, but it wasn't quite the same as the Tour Divide experience. And I did the same east to west for the second series of Extreme Wales. So I think it'd just be really cool. I would love to, you know, spend 2 weeks just cycling and camping and meeting different people in Wales. Because the one thing that the last decade has taught me is, for all the incredible places on our planet and the places that I'm privileged to have seen and experienced, there is nothing like coming home. And there really is nothing like what we have on our doorstep. You know, within 2 hours in a car, you can be in the middle of the Elan Valley and you can feel as isolated as you would do in Wyoming in the States. And that's really cool. So yeah, 2-3 weeks on the bike in Wales would be pretty amazing.
What challenge is your favorite?
I've got recency bias, and it's a little bit like kids. We only have one son at the moment, but you know, it'd be hard to pick your favorite child. For me, it's a little bit like that with my projects, because each, you know, some team members have been involved in every project, but there's always a new team member or a new sponsor or a new partner that comes in each project, and each team is special in their own way. Each of the challenges are scary in their own way, and each of the growth is special in its own way. So it's really hard to pick my favorite project. I fell in love with Antarctica the first moment I stepped foot on that continent back in 2010. And for the last decade, I've been kind of captivated by the history of the continent, the history of the heroic age of polar exploration. I've been captivated by the environmental impact on that continent and how that echoes and reverberates around the world. So Antarctica will always hold a special place in my heart. And, you know, to think I've skied more solo, unsupported and unassisted miles in Antarctica than anyone else in history, it's not bad for a mixed race guy from Pontypridd, and it's something I'm incredibly proud of. My favorite experience, though, was probably one of the legs on my 737 challenge. So, of course, it was a race. It was a world first race against the clock. But one leg, I climbed with a whole bunch of friends, and everybody raised money in need of Marie Curie Cancer Care. And it was a really special experience because in the middle of this hugely stressful kind of race against the clock and competition against Mother Nature and trying to do something that nobody had ever done in history, I had a week seeing other people grow, and I had a week seeing other people face their own demons and come out the other end. And it was a really inspirational, in the true sense of the word, experience. And that was really special. And my cousin Di and one of the Marie Curie nurses that was supporting the project, Jan. Unfortunately, they have since passed away, and it only makes you realise how special that moment was. So, to answer your question, of course, there are projects that I enjoy, but the things I enjoy most, or the projects that I've enjoyed most, are ones when I've been able to see others grow and when I've been able to share it with others. So to that end, kind of the Team Quest Antarctica project that I had been working on the last 3 or 4 years, seeing the students grow and come out the other end was hugely rewarding. Thanks.
Do you have any upcoming challenges or plans to write another book?
I'd love to. Yeah, I'd absolutely love to. I would. I've been exploring a couple of options about writing another book. As I mentioned, I didn't start this journey thinking about writing a book, but I feel incredibly privileged to have had that opportunity and to be able to share it with the world. And it's always been kind of breathtaking and humbling in a non-cliched way when people read the book and take something from it. So I would love the opportunity to write a second. And I have some ideas. It might not be a traditional kind of part 2. It'd be really cool to write something for a younger audience as well. And who knows, you know, there might be something in the pipeline, that there might not. I have to be a little bit cryptic. My apologies, but yeah, I would love the opportunity to do something else.
What does the term New Horizons mean to you?
it means finding the courage to embrace change and to embrace the unknown, and to embrace change and the unknown with a positivity and an optimism that that isn't often in our nature. You know, it's human nature to be scared of change. It's human nature to be fearful of the unknown. But I'm much older than you guys. And the one thing that I've learned is being scared is real and being scared is okay. But if we can find the courage to work through that fear, and embrace change and embrace the unknown with a positivity and an optimism, there will be, more often than not, there can be really exciting new opportunities and growth, and it's never quite as bad as we think it is. So new horizons to me means finding the courage to work through our fears of change and our fear of the unknown, because kind of that's one thing we can guarantee in life, is that things are going to change, and we're going to have periods where we don't know what's around the corner. Nobody does, to a certain extent. So finding a way to overcome that fear and to see it as an opportunity for growth and an opportunity to learn new skills and evolve as human beings, that's what New Horizons means to me.
All good. Any other questions, guys, based off any of the responses? No, all good. Mr. Owen at the back wants to know where you bought your T-shirt from.
Do you know what? It was a present from Jo, my wife, and I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. It's thanks for asking. I can't answer that question because I don't know. But what I will do is find out and text you, Nathan. How about that? I can answer it a little bit later.
Really, yeah. Mr. Owen's smiling now, so he's happy about that. So yeah, all good then. Richard, thank you so much for your time this morning. We really appreciate it. You guys really enjoyed that, didn't you? So,
Thank you.
They're really appreciative. So yeah, they really enjoyed it. You can't see much of their expressions for their masks, but you can give a thumbs up, I guess, guys. Can you? No? Yeah.
But
no.
It's
Thank you very much.
sorry, Nathan. It's always these video calls are always difficult because you never quite know when to talk or when not to talk. So I my apologies for talking over you, but I just wanted to say thanks for thinking of me. Thanks for inviting me to be a part of this program. You know, I know that you guys aren't able to go to Hay this year, but I think it's an amazing kind of project that Mr. Atkins and Bryn Mawr Foundation School have kind of developed. It's really cool to be a part of it, and I hear that you've got a new library in the pipeline, and I wanted to say that I'm going to pop this in the post. It's I don't know if you can see it. But it's the flag that I carried with me on that last expedition to Antarctica when I broke the world records, and I wanted to send it to the school, and hopefully you might find a place for it in the library along with a copy of the book. So thank you very much, and I hope we get a chance to talk again sometime soon.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it, guys. They're all a bit speechless this end, so we do really appreciate it, and it's going to have pride of place. So thank you very much for that, Richard.
Yeah. Oh, one last thing, Poblak. Good luck. You've got a few exams left next week and this week. Keep working hard, guys, and yeah, I wish you guys all the best. And like I said, I hope to see you again soon, some days.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers, Richard. Thank you. We'll leave it there. Thank you.
Cheers. Diolch yn fawr.